Brother, studies confirm something most men don't want to believe. Nearly 8 out of 10 women lie about their real number of sexual partners. And it's not because they're evil, it's because they know the truth carries weight. They know it changes how you see long-term potential. So the number she gives you is polished, packaged, and strategically deflated. But here's the one thing she can't disguise: her patterns, her habits, her emotional reflexes, her instincts. Those reveal everything her words try to cover. And that's why intelligent men, the ones who build stable families instead of losing them in court, quietly pay attention to the 8 signs you're about to hear. Because some signs whisper, others scream, and the 3rd sign alone, brother, can reveal her entire relational history in under one conversation. The 5th one shows up on the first date. The 7th explains why every relationship she ever touched fell apart the exact same way. And the 8th, it's clear as day. You just need to know what to look for. Men who learn these signs protect their future. Men who ignore them end up paying for a mistake they never should have made. So the question becomes, which man are you going to be? Before we even get into the signs, you need to understand the foundation. A woman's sexual history isn't just a number. It's a neurological training process, years of choices that teach her brain what relationships feel like, what attraction feels like, what commitment feels like, or doesn't. A long history of casual partners correlates with some brutal realities: higher infidelity, higher divorce probability, unstable bonds, and higher likelihood of becoming a single mother. That's not moral judgment, that's data. And when you're deciding who may become the mother of your children, due diligence isn't insecurity, it's intelligence. If a man researched a business investment before putting in $100,000, nobody would mock him. But somehow you're shamed for evaluating the person you'll invest your entire life into. Because here's the truth: her past trained her. If she chased excitement instead of stability, her brain connected attraction with chaos. If she bailed every time the relationship lost novelty, she wired herself to leave whenever things get calm. If she used sex as validation, she wired herself to rely on external approval instead of internal grounding. And unless she's done years of deep internal work, often with professional help, those patterns are still running her life. Patterns don't vanish because she says, "I'm different now." Words don't rewire neural circuits. That's why these signs exist, so you don't discover the truth after marriage or after kids. First sign, how she talks about her exes. This one hits fast. Watch how she describes her past relationships. A woman with a grounded, limited history talks about exes with maturity. She can admit incompatibility. She can acknowledge her part in the problems. Her stories don't sound like disaster documentaries. They sound like life happening. But a woman with an extensive history, completely different pattern. Every ex is a villain: toxic, abusive, narcissistic, manipulative, lying, cheating, gaslighting. Somehow, every single man she ever dated was the worst man alive. And she was always the innocent angel who gave everything. Brother, people don't accidentally date 10 monsters in a row. If every story she tells is filled with drama, chaos, and betrayal, the pattern is her. And pay attention to her archive. A mature woman has 2, maybe 3 meaningful relationships she can explain clearly. A woman with a long sexual past has dozens of men in rotating story form: short flings, dramatic almost relationships, casual things. That's the real number slipping out, especially when she uses vague terms like "someone I saw for a bit" or "a guy I used to talk to." Those are the ones she doesn't count, but should. Also listen to her tone. If she talks about exes with disproportionate anger, if she's still emotionally charged years later, that means she never processed anything. She didn't learn, she didn't reflect, she didn't grow, she just moved on to the next man. If you hear more than 5 dramatic ex stories or unofficial situationships, consider that your first confirmation. Second sign, a male-dominated social circle. Now look at her friendships. A woman with a stable past usually has women as her closest circle, maybe 1 or 2 male friends from childhood, men with a decade-long track record of boundaries and clarity. But a woman with extensive history, her social orbit is full of men. And she'll say the classic lines, "I just get along better with guys," or "girls are too dramatic." Brother, men don't orbit women for fun. They orbit because they were something once, or hope to be something again. And watch how she interacts with those male friends. Too familiar, too touchy, too much flirting disguised as just how we are. Platonic friendship doesn't look like that. Here's the test. Ask her directly whether anything romantic or sexual ever happened with each of those men. A woman with nothing to hide answers instantly. No, never. But if she hesitates, gets uncomfortable, or gives a vague, well, not really, you already have your answer. And watch her reaction if you express discomfort. A woman with a grounded past respects your boundaries. A woman with a promiscuous past gets defensive, calls you insecure, and refuses to adjust anything. Because cutting off male attention would mean cutting off validation she's relied on for years. Brother, pause for a second. Based on what we just covered, how many red flags have you already seen in your own past relationships? Comment one word: patterns. And if you're getting clarity from this breakdown, subscribe and join a growing community of men who refuse to walk into relationships blind. Now, brother, let's move into the sign that exposes more truth in one date than most men learn in 6 months: the timeline of physical intimacy. This one is brutally revealing because it bypasses words entirely and goes straight to her internal wiring. Third sign: accelerated timeline of physical intimacy. A woman with a grounded past has internal boundaries, not forced, not performative, natural. She feels the weight of intimacy. She understands that sex connects emotions, expectations, vulnerability. She needs trust. She needs time. She needs to know who she's letting into her life and her body. And when the connection isn't there yet, she slows everything down. Not to manipulate you, but because her nervous system treats intimacy as meaningful. But a woman with a long sexual history, the timing is completely different. Physical intimacy arrives shockingly fast. First date, maybe second, sometimes even before a real date has happened. And it's not because she feels something special for you, brother. It's because repetition reduces meaning. After dozens or even hundreds of encounters, the emotional weight sex used to have is no longer there. What should feel vulnerable now feels routine. What should require depth now requires only chemistry or convenience. Ask yourself something honest. If she gave intimacy to you almost instantly, what makes you think she didn't give the same thing to dozens of men before you? What makes you unique in that pattern? Also, pay close attention to how she talks in the early stages. A woman with a limited past keeps conversation appropriate until trust exists. A woman with an extensive past introduces sexual jokes, innuendos, explicit comments, or suggestive messages way too early. She's normalizing intimacy before there's any foundation. That's not chemistry, that's conditioning. And here's the part most men overlook. When a relationship begins with fast physical connection, you're building on chemistry, not compatibility. Chemistry fades, biology calms down, and when that moment comes, a woman who's conditioned to chase novelty will subconsciously look for the next spark. Because the relationship never had emotional architecture, only adrenaline. Fourth sign: social media patterns. This one might be the easiest to verify, because all you have to do is look. Social media is the modern X-ray of someone's relationship history. You don't need detective skills, you only need to observe. A woman with a grounded, limited past posts modestly. Normal life, friends, family, occasional pictures where she looks good, but nothing engineered to grab the attention of thousands of strangers. Validation isn't her oxygen, but a woman with a long sexual history, her social media is a marketing campaign, and she's the product. Revealing outfits, suggestive angles, thirst trap lighting, poses optimized not for memory but for maximum attention, captions crafted to invite compliments, patterns of posting that spike whenever she wants a dopamine hit. And look at the comment section. Swarms of men dropping hard eyes, flame emojis, borderline sexual comments. And if she's replying, flirting back, or encouraging it, even subtly, then brother, you're not dating a woman, you're stepping into a marketplace. Now go deeper. Scroll through her past posts if you can. Do you see different men appearing in romantic contexts year after year? Do you see cycles of deleting photos of exes and replacing them with new ones? That's a rotation pattern. Stability doesn't look like that. Also note the ratio. If 80% of her photos are selfies featuring her body, heavy editing, filters, and hyper-controlled posing, she's not posting for connection. She's posting for validation. And a woman who needs daily external confirmation of her worth, especially from men, is not emotionally ready to commit to one man exclusively. Here's the honest truth, brother. A woman who's constantly performing for strangers online can't simultaneously build intimacy with just you. Her attention is already distributed. Her self-worth is already outsourced. And understand something deeper. Those validation loops don't magically vanish when she enters a relationship. They're addictive. She's neurologically hooked on attention, and no matter how strong your bond feels today, you can't compete with hundreds of men offering instant dopamine on every post. This is why these signs exist, not to shame her, but to protect you from stepping into a commitment where you don't stand a chance against her past conditioning. Brother, take a breath. Between the timing of intimacy and her social media patterns, which one speaks louder to you personally? Drop one simple word in the comments: clarity. Now, brother, let's move into two signs most men underestimate. They look harmless on the surface, but once you understand the psychology underneath, they reveal patterns that run far deeper than anyone admits out loud. Fifth sign: her relationship with alcohol in social contexts. A woman with a limited sexual past treats alcohol the same way she treats intimacy, with boundaries. She can enjoy a drink, maybe two. She knows her limits. She protects her clarity because she respects herself, and she respects the consequences of lowering her guard around strangers or new acquaintances. There's an instinctive caution in her, not fear, wisdom. But a woman with an extensive sexual history often uses alcohol as a social tool, a facilitator, a shortcut, a way to bypass her own internal brakes. You'll hear the classic line, "When I drink, I go crazy." She says it like it's cute, like it's a personality trait. But what she's really telling you is that intoxication is her permission slip for behavior she doesn't want to take full ownership of. And watch her stories. Multiple nights where she doesn't remember what happened. Nights where she woke up confused, laughing it off like it's an adventure instead of a warning sign. Nights where she frames impulsive decisions as accidents instead of choices. Brother, those aren't stories about fun. Those are stories about impulsive boundaries collapsing and being normalized. And if she's drinking aggressively on your first date, that's not a random mood. That's a pattern. Either she genuinely has a problem that requires professional help, or she's consciously lowering her inhibitions because without alcohol, she wouldn't do what she's planning to do with you. And that matters. Because if alcohol is the trigger for intimacy, chaos, or impulsive decisions, then alcohol governs her relationships more than stability ever will. A future with someone who loses control often leads to nights you can't predict, behaviors you can't trust, and consequences neither of you can undo. Sixth sign: her dynamic with her father. This one is heavy, not in a judgmental way, but in a psychological way. Because a woman's relationship with her father is often the template for how she relates to men for the rest of her life. A woman with a healthy or reasonably functional relationship with her father usually shows stability in her romantic life. She learned respect, boundaries, consistency, emotional grounding. Even if there were normal conflicts, there was presence, there was communication, there was structure. But a woman with an extensive sexual past often carries a very different story. Maybe her father was physically absent. Maybe he lived in the house but was emotionally gone, cold, harsh, critical, or unreliable. Maybe he left early. Maybe he checked out mentally. Whatever the shape, the outcome is the same: a massive paternal void. And here's where psychology steps in. Human beings don't tolerate emotional voids. We fill them. A girl who grows up without her father's acceptance, affection, or stability often spends her adult years unconsciously chasing male validation to patch the wound. Not because she's reckless, not because she's immoral, but because psychologically, she's starving. Listen closely to how she talks about her father. If there's resentment that feels unprocessed, if there's hurt that sits close to the surface, if she tells stories of abandonment, rejection, or painful distance, you're not listening to her past, you're listening to the blueprint of her adult relationships. And here's the part most men misunderstand. If she hasn't done deep therapeutic work, not journaling, not self-love, but actual structured healing, she will bring those wounds directly into your relationship. She will project old pain onto you. She will unconsciously expect you to fill a role no partner can fill. She will test you, react emotionally without understanding why, or seek validation from other men because that wound still runs the show. And brother, no matter how strong you are, how loving you are, how stable you are, you cannot fix a father wound. That's not a partner's responsibility, and it's not a battle you'll ever win. Recognize it early, not late. Tell me this honestly. Between alcohol habits and the father dynamic, which one have you seen derail relationships the fastest? Drop one word in the comments: impact. Now, brother, let's move into the final two signs, the ones that expose not just her past, but the operating system she brings into every relationship. These are the signs that predict whether she can maintain long-term stability or whether she's neurologically wired for chaos. Seventh sign, her need for drama and intensity. Listen closely to how she talks about past relationships and what she says she's looking for in a partner. A woman with a grounded, limited history wants something real: stability, peace, mutual building, emotional safety, shared direction. She values consistency over fireworks. She understands that real love doesn't feel like a roller coaster. It feels like a foundation. But a woman with an extensive sexual past, her language gives her away instantly. She talks about wanting someone who keeps her on her toes, someone who challenges her, someone who creates spark, passion, intensity, butterflies, and fire. Her past relationships weren't peaceful, they were emotional carnivals. High highs followed by devastating lows, constant drama, constant uncertainty, constant adrenaline. What she's describing isn't love, it's chemical addiction. Her brain has been conditioned by chaotic relationships to associate emotional turbulence with romantic excitement. Stability feels boring to her, predictability feels dead, calm feels like a flat line. So when she says, "I get bored easily," or "I need someone who challenges me," or "I need intensity to feel alive," what she's really saying is, "Peace does nothing for me. My nervous system needs chaos." And here's the part most men refuse to accept. No matter how great of a man you are, you cannot sustain the level of emotional stimulation her brain craves. No healthy man can. No stable relationship can. It's not sustainable. Eventually, she will feel bored, even if you're giving her everything. And when the initial chemical high fades, as it does in every relationship, her conditioned pattern will push her to seek novelty again. Ask her a simple question. What was your longest relationship? If the answer is 6 months, maybe a year at best, that tells you everything. She can't make it past the novelty phase. She leaves when intensity fades, not because the relationship was bad, but because her brain has been trained to leave. Eighth sign, absence of appropriate shame. This final sign is subtle, but extremely revealing. Pay close attention to how she talks about intimacy, her body, and sex, especially early on. A woman with a limited sexual history has a natural sense of modesty, not repression, not prudishness, just a healthy awareness that intimacy is private, personal, something you earn, not something you announce. She doesn't casually share explicit stories. She doesn't sexualize conversations with strangers. She doesn't treat her body like public content. But a woman with a long sexual history? Completely different boundaries. She talks about sex casually, makes explicit jokes early, shares intimate details of past partners without hesitation, discusses her body like it's small talk, reveals things that should require deep trust to people she barely knows. Brother, that level of casualness isn't confidence. It's desensitization. She crossed those lines so many times that the lines disappeared. The intimacy filter that healthy people naturally have, she doesn't. And that matters, because someone who treats intimacy casually will continue to treat it casually, even in a committed relationship. And when that boundary is gone internally, it's gone externally too. Now, these signs aren't here to judge her. They're here to protect you. Because behavior never lies. Patterns never lie. History never lies. If you've ever felt confused by a woman's actions, felt blindsided by a breakup, felt fooled by someone who seemed perfect at first, it wasn't your lack of intelligence. It was lack of framework. Now, you have the framework. Your future depends on your ability to see clearly, before you commit, before you invest, before you tie your life to someone whose patterns will shape your entire reality. Brother, I want to hear from you. Which sign hit you the hardest or clarified something you've ignored in the past? Comment one word that captures it: truth. And if this video gave you clarity, subscribe and join a growing community of men who see what others overlook, who protect their future, who choose with intention instead of hope.